What if that one thing you need to fix about yourself is the one thing that'll keep you feeling broken, living beneath your potential, and repeating the same bad habits for the rest of your life? And what if I told you that same belief is literally rewiring your brain to make sure you stay stuck, anxious, and in search of solutions that don't exist? I'm sorry to tell you, but that voice in your head saying I'm damaged goods, I need to fix myself, ain't wisdom. That's trauma talking. Here's a hard concept to grasp. You wasn't born broken. You were broken down by systems, people, and circumstances that had you believing your natural human responses to pain and trauma was character defects. Buzz! Did you get that? Since childhood, you were made to feel wrong for your feelings and reactions to other people's dysfunction, emotional and physical abuse. But as a child, you saw the injustices as your flaw, not the flaw of your abuser. You follow that? My name is Tijuana Jackson, the people's mentor. I help grown folks finally get clear on what they doing with their life. I use humor to teach what school skipped, church shamed, and your daddy dodged, because I believe if you work through your pain, you get to serve through your purpose. And it all starts with a deeper self-awareness. I do free coachings all the time. If you want to get some of this free game, link is in the description. Buzz. Today, we diving into the detrimental effects of believing you are broken. Picture this, me, 32 years old, standing in Target, holding Unfuck Yourself in one hand, feeling this book might finally be the answer to whatever was wrong with me. This was book number 47, by the way. 47 books, 23 online courses later, I was still the same anxious, self-doubting person I started as. But here's what I didn't understand. I had become addicted to the process of fixing myself, not because the solutions worked, but because being broken had become my identity. Nobody talks about how addictive being broken actually is. The more you search for what's wrong with you, the more broken you feel. Because every new method implies the last one failed because you failed. Every new approach suggests you haven't found the right combination yet. It's like being in a relationship with your own pain that keeps promising to heal if you just dig deeper. That Target moment was my rock bottom. Not because I was buying another book, but because I realized I'd been feeding an identity that wasn't really mine. I had convinced myself that my trauma responses, hypervigilant, people-pleasing, perfectionism, were personality flaws instead of survival mechanisms. But I was 32 years old when I had finally realized how trauma literally changes your brain structure. I'm sitting in my therapist's office. Yes, actual therapy, not another $297 masterclass. She points to the hippocampus, that part of your brain responsible for memory and stress tolerance, and says, TJ, trauma shrinks this. Your brain isn't broken. It's adapted to survive what you survived. Y'all, I cried right there. Not because it was sad, but because for the first time in my life, someone explained my behavior without making me the villain of my own story. It was a good cry. The snot came down and so did my blood pressure. I finally figured out why I kept searching for solutions that didn't exist. When the hippocampus is impaired from chronic stress, you literally can't learn as effectively. Your memory gets fuzzy. Your decision-making gets cloudy, and you start looking everywhere for answers except the one place they actually exist, within your own understanding of what you've survived. What most people don't understand is that your amygdala, your fear center, is hyperactive from trauma. So you believe your anxiety is a character flaw you can think your way out of instead of a biological response that needs actual understanding and integration, not another technique. That's how you stay stuck searching for external solutions to internal issues. The most expensive therapy session of my life taught me I wasn't broken. Meanwhile, I'm thinking about how I watched my mama navigate 3 different abusive relationships before I turned 10. I learned to read adult emotions by age 5 to avoid violence, and develop people-pleasing as a survival skill, not a character defect. But something clicked in that moment. The most dangerous thing about believing you broken or needing to be fixed ain't what you think. It was how much weight I put on the words of other people, making me question my own reality. When somebody telling you that your very real, very valid stance or reaction on certain issues as it relates to love, disrespect, trust, success, failure is just mindset issues, you start thinking, well, maybe I am just weak. Maybe I am just making excuses. But that's another form of gaslight. And it happens every time somebody try to reduce your complex survival strategies to something as simple as negative thinking. They take your authentic healing journey and turn it into a productivity problem, a too sensitive problem, a snap out of it problem. They make you believe that if their approach don't work, you didn't work hard enough, believe hard enough, want it bad enough. The real breakthrough happened when I stopped trying to fix fix myself and started trying to understand myself. Can I give you a quick example? When my son was 3 years old, I gave him this toy, and when we put it together, something was off. When he rolled it, it would turn instead of going straight. So he started tinkering with it, struggling to figure out what was wrong. So I said, hey, I think we're gonna have to return this one because it's broken. That's all he needed to hear. He walked away from that shit, never touched it again. Now here's where my lesson came in. 2 in the morning, my son wakes up between me and his mom and says, Mom, Dad, you can take the training wheels off my bicycle now. I think I know how to ride it, and went back to sleep. The next morning, I took the training wheels off, and this boy hopped on that bike and proceeded to ride a 2-wheel bicycle at the age of 3 like he'd been doing it all his life. Me, a nervous wreck, trying to protect him from falling. But he didn't need me. His brain had assessed the challenge and figured out how to balance without training wheels. The difference? He saw the toy as broken and the bicycle as something he needed to learn. Which one is you? You are not broken. That's a counterproductive way to look at yourself, especially when the parts of you you're trying to fix be the same parts that hold your genius flaw. Now would be a good time to hit the like button if you like something, and if you motivated as hell, hit that notification bell. But if you really want to help this channel grow, share this with your folks. Pause now. Raise your hand if you've ever felt personally attacked by your own healing process. When you deliberately choose to challenge your biological program, it feels like you're trying to get out from under a down low sumo wrestler. When you stop behaving like you think you broken, stop acting like you owe people an apology just for breathing, people get uncomfortable. When you stop explaining your boundaries, justifying your needs, and apologizing for taking up space, folks who benefited from your trauma responses start acting funny. My own family, my homie, my exes was like, what's wrong with you? You used to be so down to earth. Translation, you used to absorb our dysfunction and call it love. Friends started saying, I'm different. And this translation, you used to drink up our gaslighting and manipulation like warm water. It's gonna take a lot for people to realize this about themselves, but I couldn't be mad at my exes and family members for hating on my growth, because at the time, my ego would rather see itself as broken than see itself as an unknown. Because when you've built an identity around being the broken one, the fixer-upper, the project, healing feels like death. Your ego literally thinks you're gonna disappear if you stop being the person everybody expects you to be. I had to say goodbye to and grieve the version of myself that everybody was comfortable with. Basically, I had to stop being this Peter Pan ass I was outright being taken advantage of for my niceness, which wasn't niceness at all. It was this hyper-vigilant need to do the most upstanding things and always take the high road until I'd crash and burn and say some ill shit. And then I'd have people holding it over my head for a full decade, despite me having to apologize to them in bed, in couples therapy, in public, repeatedly. Not to mention the changed behavior I displayed along the way. They were trying to keep me the version that said yes when I meant no. They went along with the baby daddy drama. It played small and relatable so others could feel big. That version of me kept me safe, but he was also keeping me stuck. Here's what's deadly about it. Folks in self-help culture thrive on this. They know that real healing means losing the identity that others recognize. And most people would rather stay broken and familiar than become healed and unknown. Bars! Would you call me a full-blown lie if I told you the therapist who changed my life never tried to fix me? After 3 therapists who wanted to medicate away my hypervigilance, wanted me to embrace people who never apologized or showed remorse for what they did to me, wanted me to buy 12 therapy sessions at a package discount to fix my generational trauma, I found someone different. She did EMDR. She looked at me and said, TJ, you're not broken, you're brilliant. Your nervous system created the most sophisticated survival mechanism to navigate impossible circumstances. Now we just need to update it for your current life. That's when I understood. I wasn't a problem to be solved. Here's the truth about trauma most healing coaches don't want you to know. Most healing modalities are designed for people with secure attachments who experience isolated incidents of trauma. Not folks like us who were so submerged in trauma we didn't even recognize it. It was so regular we learned to function with a dysregulated nervous system. Our trauma isn't just something that happened to us. It was part of our parents, our neighbors, our teachers, and community dysfunction due to a lack of exposure, a lack of resources, and the list go on like stripper glitter. Folks like us need healing potions tailored to our experiences. We need practitioners who understand that our hypervigilance isn't paranoia, it's an accurate threat assessment from growing up in unpredictable environments. And now, having to live as adults in environments that mask and mirror the same dangers, racial biases, and life-threatening scenarios, our people-pleasing and code-switching isn't weakness. It's strategic survival learned from households and environments where our safety depended on managing other people's emotions and biases. When I finally found trauma-informed therapy that honored my survival strategies while helping me update them for my current life, that's when the healing began. Not fixing, healing. Not changing who I was, but integrating who I had always been. Bars. Stop trying to fix your inner child and start honoring his genius. Y'all talk about inner child work like it's some broken little thing that needs fixing, but my inner child was a damn strategist. He learned to read micro-expressions to predict violence, developed emotional intelligence to navigate chaos, and created coping mechanisms that kept us both alive. Dog, the problem wasn't him. The problem was that I was trying to fix him instead of updating his software. He was still running Windows 95 in a Mac world, still preparing for dangers that no longer existed, still protecting us from people who couldn't hurt us no more. Here's what a lot of people get wrong when it comes to the inner child healing. The inner child understands all of it, but nobody is willing to reaffirm it for him. It's like lifelong gaslight. So I started to reparent myself, to give my inner child what he never got. I started talking to my inner child like the brilliant survival expert he was. Thank you for keeping us safe. Thank you for learning to navigate what no child should have to navigate. You protected us. Now it's my turn to protect you, little nigga. I'm sorry I took so long to come back and get you. Now let me teach you about these new environments where our old strategies might not serve. That's when the hypervigilance became intuition. The people-pleasing became healthy boundaries. And the perfectionism became excellence without self-punishment. Look, I'm not just healing my inner child. I'm upgrading it. In fact, here's why I stopped calling myself a survivor and started calling myself a thriver. Survivor implies you're still defined by what you survive. Thriver means you're actively engaged in the business of living, creating, and excelling beyond the story of what happened to you. I realized I'd been wearing my trauma like a badge of honor. Using my survival story as my entire identity and letting my past pain become my present personality. Don't get me wrong, surviving takes strength, and that strength deserves recognition. But at some point, survival should evolve into thriving. Some people fall in love with your wounds, not your wisdom. Friends who bonded with me over shared trauma felt abandoned when I stopped wanting to rehash the same story. Family members who was used to me being the family therapist got uncomfortable when I started having my own needs. Partners who are at the time of you seeing this video are my exes who are attracted to my low self-esteem and my need to be the overcompensator suddenly didn't know how to relate to my no fucks given. I had to learn that some people fall in love with your wounds, not your wisdom. Some folks are more comfortable with your damage than your healing. Some relationships only work when you stay broken. And healing means outgrowing those connections. The hardest part of healing isn't facing your trauma. It's releasing the identity that trauma created and allowing yourself to become someone you've never been before. Somebody in full acceptance of who they are, where they are, and somebody who doesn't need fixing. Do y'all understand what I do as a clarity coach? See how your heart racing right now? That's called inspiration. The truth has a tendency of doing that. You want to schedule a free coaching with me and suck up some of this game? Link is in the description. Real quick. My grandmother knew something about healing that we forgot. She used to say, baby, I don't need somebody to tell me what's wrong with me. I need somebody to remind me of what's right with me. I thought she was being difficult, avoiding her issues, living in denial. But now I realize she understood something that a lot of therapists are naive to. You are not your trauma. Your trauma is something that happened to you, in you, around you, but it's not you. She knew that healing happens in community, not isolation. A lot of folks out there thinking they gotta fix themselves so that they can present themselves to the world, or they gotta heal themselves before they can have a relationship. And healing becomes another form of perfectionism, where you constantly monitoring your progress, judging your setback, and performing wellness like it's a part-time job, still feeling disconnected from yourself, because we out here treating symptoms instead of causes, doing spiritual bypassing instead of psychological integration, and following other people's healing formulas instead of listening to our own inner wisdom. As we like to say at the Nearapy Center, healing is what happens during life, not before. Healing doesn't necessarily get you a seat at the table, but an earnest healing journey will help you stay at them motherfuckers. I have no credentials other than lived experiences, not academic theory. Some of the therapy I got 10 years ago just landing right now. Your strength comes from surviving what you survived. And though you might not be proud of who you were, walking around believing you are broken prevents you from accepting who you are. My grandmama didn't make excuses for her responses to poverty, racism, and domestic violence. She understood the survival responses and strategies that kept her and her children alive. She had her regrets, like the time she topped off the landlord for a new water heater and then told our pastor, But looking back, she realizes her attachment style was perfectly adapted to her circumstance. And I can't judge her decisions because I don't really know what her choices were. But I do know that my great-grandmama pew-pewed my great-granddaddy in the balls for trying to do something foul to one of his daughters. I just don't know which one, and grandma don't want to talk about it. Whether we aware of it or not, a lot of us was repeatedly subjected to some inhumane shit, and it had an effect on us. Grandmama was bent, not broken, weathered, not damaged, refined by fire, not destroyed by it. That's when I realized healing ain't about fixing yourself. It's about acknowledging that you had to adapt to survive where you were, which should be enough proof that you can now adapt to live and thrive where you are. Ball. And if you really want to get into this game of life, I want you to check out this video right here.
Subscribe to my dad's channel. Bars!